Hey guys, Brad here. A couple of days ago I got the chance to film a behind-the-scenes video for my friend and fellow photographer David LaRochelle. We were shooting out on a farm with horses and a beautiful model, and Dave used high-speed sync. The high-speed sync allowed Dave to shoot at shutter speeds of about a 3,000th of a second. It was a bright sunny day like today. We had harsh sunlight and an open blue sky. It did make me curious though. How close to Dave's results could I come using my A6000 and the flash equipment that I already have? Sorry guys, no horses or pretty girls in this video, but I did go out in the backyard and shoot a few pics of myself to see what I could get. Here's what I found out. I set up my Sony A6000 with my 50mm f1.8 lens. I found out that 160th of a second, which is the A6000's maximum flash sync speed, that I was about a stop and a half overexposed. Okay guys, I think this might be easier to understand if we look at it in Lightroom. We wanted to blur our background, so we wanted to shoot at f1.8. I'm using the 50mm f1.8 lens on my Sony A6000. Now, instead of running the shutter speed up, because I want to use flash, my maximum flash sync speed on the A6000 is 1/160th of a second. So at those settings, as you can see, our picture is overexposed by about almost 2 stops. So there's our proper exposure. So this is why you need to use high-speed sync. High-speed sync allows you to run this shutter speed up to 250, 320, 1,000th, a 2,000th of a second. At that point, I installed a neutral density filter. This is a little 49mm screw-on filter. Mine is a Hoya. It's an ND8 49mm. By simply adding the neutral density filter, we can look at our histogram and our exposure, and that ND8 kind of put us right in the ballpark. This is a properly exposed picture. Generally, when you're outside and you're using off-camera flash, you want to try to set your ambient light to a stop and a half, or even 2 stops underexposed. So, at that point, I put on a Hoya 49mm circular polarizing filter. I watched the light meter in the camera, and I just turned the polarizing filter until the exposure dropped as far as possible and left it there. Okay, so now we're underexposed. We look up here at the histogram, and we're underexposed right at 2 stops, which is going to be really nice. This is where we want it to be able to illuminate our subject and then let that background not only be blurred, but be a little darker. My first shots were taken with this setup. I'm about 6 feet away from my camera. I had the silver umbrella 45 degrees off the camera with the flashes firing up into the silver umbrella. I kind of wondered how much of the light I was getting was sunlight reflecting out of the silver umbrella. Who knows? Okay, so at this point, I started adding flash. If we look back at this picture, it's properly exposed, but our light is really soft and we don't have any catch lights in the eye. When I added flash, and you can see we got catch lights in the eyes, this was with the 3 flashes at 1/4 of a power. If we adjust that one up, adjust our exposure up about a stop and a third. So I increased the flash power from 1/4 to 1/2, and now we're properly exposed by increasing our exposure about 1/2 a stop. Now with the silver umbrella, you get real specular light, and even though it was an umbrella, it was pretty harsh light. So here we are, again the silver umbrella, all 3 flashes were set to full power, and as you can see, this is properly exposed, but we really need to bring down the highlights and bring up the shadows a little bit. Okay, looking at the back of the camera, I was a little concerned about how deep the shadows were, so I brought the umbrella directly behind my camera. Again, this exposure is fine. Might want to decrease those highlights and increase the shadows a little bit. I really felt like this picture kind of looks fake. The background was a little bit too dark. So I did a little experiment. I increased my ISO to 400, lowered my shutter speed to bring in a little bit more ambient light, kept my f-stop at 1.8. Here's a properly exposed picture with the umbrella directly behind the camera. Here's another shot with a little bit lower shutter speed to kind of lighten up that background. Again, also at ISO 320, and I believe the flash power was reduced to about 1/4 power, and again, 3 speed lights in the umbrella. If we look at our exposure, we can lower it just slightly, lower our highlights, and we've got a pretty decent shot. After I took those shots, I decided to give a shoot-through umbrella a try. I'll admit, I really didn't expect anything out of the shoot-through umbrella. I assumed that enough light would be reflected back from the shoot-through umbrella that the speedlights wouldn't have enough power. Actually, I think I was wrong. The light through the shoot-through umbrella was much softer, much less specular than the light from the silver umbrella. Again, I found myself wondering a little bit how much of the fill light was actually the sun reflecting off the umbrella. Don't know. Okay, when I went from the silver umbrella to a shoot-through umbrella, I thought that I would lose a lot of light. I was really pleasantly surprised that I did not, and when I moved the shoot-through umbrella back to 45 degrees away from the camera, got a much softer shadow line here, and with just very little processing, got a pretty decent picture. Okay, again, this was with the shoot-through umbrella. We'll bring our exposure down about 3/4 to stop, and hold down Option or Alt, and move our black slider down until we have a little black appear, and we've got some highlights up there in the top, so we'll just reduce that. Come in here, add just a little bit of clarity, or not. Let's come in here and let's crop this guy. Let's go with an 8x10 crop. And there we go, guys. I realize it's not a pretty girl on a horse, but it's not a terrible shot. It's a pretty quick and easy way to take a nice headshot outdoors in full sun, still be able to shoot wide open so that you blur your background, and there you have it. You can do a little bit more here. There we go. If you want to make your subject stand out, you can add a little bit of a vignette. We can play with the tone curve. Then if we wanted to fully process this photo, we can say Edit in Photoshop, and we'll wait for Photoshop to open up. Here we go. Alt-J, duplicate our background layer. Let's zoom in here. J will get us our little spot healing brush, and we can kind of go to work on, see if we can cover up some of this ugly. Get rid of that low neck surgery scar. There we go. we'll flatten that. Then Apple J again. And guys, you've seen the Portrait Pro software. I run it as a plug-in in Lightroom. There we go. Mail. Let's get our memory cleaned out a little bit. And we want a male with no sculpt. Clean up that memory a little bit. There we go. And then the lighting controls, since I have the catch lights up here, and move that light to kind of agree with where the catch lights are. We'll say return from plug-in. And then we'll just reduce that layer's opacity to about 75%. You can see how it kind of, just a little gentle cleanup on that skin so that I don't look so blotchy. If you want to, you can reduce that a little bit more since I'm kind of old and creepy. And we'll say save. And there you go, it appears in Lightroom. There's our original shot. There's our retouch shot. Okay guys, just a couple of more thoughts really quickly. First of all, using these umbrellas on the stands that I have outdoors, today is a perfectly still day, and I've already had this stand try to fall over once. So if you're using a setup like this, you are going to have an assistant hold this stand. I would recommend a good quality C-stand with a sandbag at the very minimum. When Dave and I were working together on his shoot, he was using a powerful studio strobe in a 47 or 48 inch octabox. He was able to keep his flash 15 or even 20 feet away from the subject. Would this setup be powerful enough to do that? I doubt it. We'll just have to go see. I do think this is a very usable setup for Head and Shoulders portraits outdoor. When it comes to workflow, is true high-speed sync the superior workflow? Absolutely. Dave tells me repeatedly, it really is all about the gear. But I wanted to make this video for guys like me who are on a restricted budget. My philosophy is, even though I'd love to someday shoot top-of-the-line gear, I need to make my existing gear buy my subsequent gear. So if you've got an A6000, a neutral density filter, a circular polarizing filter, a couple of speed lights, give this a try. Sure, it's not high-speed sync, but you may be pleasantly surprised with how your outdoor portrait work turns out. I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Thanks so much.